Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting installment of the Westmarch Workshop. I know this voice you've been missing because I was not here last time around, but my main man, Nineball, held you guys down, did that solo show oh so well. So shout out to that guy. Thank you very much for holding down the fort. But I have returned, and I am here to grace you with my presence and voice and talk about some Diablo 3. So today, without further ado, let's hop on into episode 134. The real episode 134.
Yep.
Wait, what? What does this title mean, None?
It means because, you know, this was a real Ron Burgundy moment last episode. So we have a set of show notes that kind of covers the stuff that we talk about on each one of the episodes. And Leviathan was doing like the smart thing, like pre-planning ahead. Let's go ahead and start, getting the show notes together for the next couple of episodes and putting and kind of spreading out some certain topics and things that we can build upon. And so what do? I just go into the Google Docs drive. I pick the very first one that's entitled episode 134. And I start going through the show notes and building like the episode file off of that. And well, yeah, it wasn't actually supposed to be episode 134. It was supposed to be episode 133. I just read from the teleprompter and went with it. So there you go.
I think the valuable lesson that we've learned here is do not work ahead. Always procrastinate. That's how you make the big bucks.
Yep. That is a true hallmark of a professional podcast.
I was thinking maybe I should date them if I go ahead. If I try to work ahead, but it was just a rare occasion where I had a little bit of extra free time, and I was like, you know what, I can get multiple show notes going, and well, that happens.
And I immediately proved why it was a bad idea.
Scratch that one.
Yep.
Never trying hard again. Oh boy, but like we said before the show started, no one magically noticed.
No one said anything. That was the thing I attempted to be called out on.
I was waiting for it. I was like, oh gosh, Nine, let me let you know, by the way.
Yep.
Someone's going to be looking for the missing episode.
Yeah. And I still remember, what was it? It's like you texted me that, and my response was, like, well, that's a thing. Or that's unfortunate. Yeah.
And would have gotten away with it too.
We could have just kept going. This could have been episode 135, and like
honestly,
yeah, no one might have ever known.
It's like those buildings that skip the 13th floor, Mm-hmm. Maybe just 133 was our unlucky episode.
That must be it. I mean, it does have 13 in it.
Ooh.
We're onto something.
Uh-huh.
We are onto something.
Oh boy. Well, outside of fooling everyone, how have you been, man? How's life been treating you?
Pretty good. More of the same. This past week has been a little bit busy. We have a film festival going on at the theater, so it's been a little bit more added on top of the regular stuff. But all in all, it's good. Going with the flow, doing some things. I got a little tiny bit of time off coming up next week.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and of course, to go through and take care of other, real life stuff. So.
Yeah, you're not actually going to get to play any games, of course.
No, of course not. Why would you even think that?
Because adult.
Yeah, adulting. Yeah, you got to go and take care of some stuff. Get all the I's and T's crossed for the new apartment move coming up next month.
Oh, that's right. Do you have an official date?
March 19th.
Nice. Yep. Excellent.
Which I think actually...
Is that spring?
I think that coincides with the... does it coincide? No. Yeah, that will fall on a week that we are doing an episode. So, all right. Got to get moved in 2 days. Gotcha. Have to have everything set up by that Wednesday. All right.
Boom. Deadline in front of you.
Yep. I'm good with deadlines. I can work with deadlines.
Well, it'll be the true test of just how crispy is the new place as far as internet goes,
Oh, that is a question I am absolutely dreading to find out the answer to. To be 100, I try to be like positive, but no, I can't.
I mean, here's the thing. It can't get much worse, right? Unless you're going to install like a 56K, you're going back to AOL.
I mean, I guess there are some possibilities. We could just do it for the sake of doing it. Let's see how this works. How does
I wonder
Twitch
if you
work on
actually
AOL?
could you? I don't think you could stream to Twitch on 56K.
Oh, ooh, I don't know. I mean, I
Challenge
guess you,
accepted.
you you could go into like the broadcast settings and limit your upload,
Oh my gosh, you'd be sending like one frame every minute.
right? Oh, that
That's
just
fantastic.
that just sounds terrible.
Talk about slideshow mode.
Yeah, those good old internet days.
Hmm. You know, I thought of you a couple of weeks back because a friend of mine just got into miniatures. She was gifted she had a white elephant party
Mm-hmm.
over the Christmas holiday,
Mm-hmm.
and she was gifted a set of Warhammer 40K miniatures.
Nice.
And, oh, this will be fun. Like, I don't play, but it can be like an art thing for me to do. And so
Mm-hmm.
she started painting, and she's like, "Oh, look at all these. There's a lot of paints. Oh, there's a lot of miniatures."
Good. Yes.
Oh. I was like, you know, this is really expensive, right? She's like, I don't care. I've bought a million of them already. I was like, well, it was nice knowing you.
Yep. And then next, she's actually gonna start playing, and then it's game over from there.
And that's the true end of life, beginning of your new hobby and
Yep.
death.
Yeah. Speaking.
Should go with Necrons, right?
Yeah, speaking of Death, Age of Sigmar just had the new Death pre-order, and the launch will be this weekend. So I'm looking forward to that. All praise to Nagash, the Undying King. So, okay.
There it is. You
Yeah.
got it in.
I got it in. I got it in there.
How much does Games Workshop pay you for those plugs on this podcast?
I can't discuss that.
Where's my cut? Oh, goodness. He's under NDA, folks. Even though he just disclosed.
No, it was a disclosure of non-disclosure, right?
Ah, okay, yes.
Yeah.
You're still in the clear.
Mm-hmm.
Good, man.
But when do the rules come out? Longshot asks.
Have they been out?
That one is a joke back to one of my personal streams from last year when 8th edition was launching. I had this call at the hobby shop that someone would not like accept the answer, that it was like the pre-order was June 17th with the rules releasing on July 3rd. And it's just like, no, but when do the rules come out? The pre-order is June 17th with like the release of July 3rd. Yeah, okay, you said that, but when do the rules come out? July 3rd. But they're on the website now. No.
Some people just can't take the hint, you know?
No.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah.
I'm sure he eventually got the rules. Some say he's still wondering when the rules come out.
I would not be surprised, to be honest.
Oh boy. Well, anything else from your past couple weeks to disclose? Can you disclose anything?
No. I think that about wraps it up so far, as my life in gaming. That about wraps it up.
All right. Well, I've got some stuff. I haven't been here in a while.
Actually, something that
Yes.
you might now I guess appreciate a little bit better. I have briefly played just a little tiny bit of World of Warcraft over the last couple of weeks.
Oh.
Yeah. And,
Where are you?
Huh?
Where are you? / what are you doing?
Oh, I am on Gilneas. I am Horde, and in true 9-ball fashion, I was watching just like it was some of the clips for the ending of the new raid that they released in 7.3.5, and
Taurus?
yeah, it was just like the lore implications of like that cutscene blew my mind. Like, what does any of this mean? How did we get here? Where the hell did this come from? And so now I had to go back and play through all the content that I missed in Legion because I've got to understand. Like, because this is like the stuff that they went and talked about. It was like dropping like the Book of Cain. Like, this is how the universe was created and what all life means. I want to know more.
That's a lot of some heavy stuff.
Yeah, it was a lot to try and take in like a single 30-second cutscene. So I have to go and find out how did we get here? Why were these questions raised and why are they being answered? So that's basically is what I've been doing, is slowly kind of like playing through the campaign for the last couple of patches of content that I've missed to pick up on the story.
Nice. Well, it's like we're both World of Warcrafters now. I didn't plan to talk about this, but the BFA, the Battle for Azeroth Alpha, went live today, and I've been seeing all sorts of data strings, and Wowhead's been on their grind. So there's some more stuff out there if because you usually say you're not a person that cares about spoilers, right? Like, if you can get it, you want it.
Well, generally, yeah.
I think there's some more for you. Some people are saying there's like some quest lines that have been revealed and a little bit more story in there.
Yeah, I've not gone through to take a jump into that just yet because I kind of want to finish everything with Legion first before I really hop into that.
That makes sense. Keep it going in a linear direction.
More or less.
Word. Well, I guess actually this is a good branch into what I've been up to because I've been kind of everywhere. I mean, in true fashion of what I was hoping for with my 2018 New Year's resolutions for gaming. I've been really trying to diversify my stocks and bonds and where I've been investing my time and efforts. And so I still was playing a little bit of D3. That was the main crux of my streams for the last few weeks. And then unfortunately last week I was just getting prepared for, and this is a spoiler for later, but we have the end date for season 12. So I was getting prepared for kind of that last week and a half, get ready to augment all the gear, because I had that solo self-found hardcore demon hunter that I started up about midway through the season. And it's crazy. Like, I swore I got DDoSed or something because, no joke, in true Leviathan fashion, I had gotten a bunch of my gems leveled, and so I didn't have any extra ones. And I was like, all right, I hate doing this, but I'm going to drop one of my leveled gems on the ground because I know I can get a new one from the Rift Guardian since it won't think I have it yet. And then as soon as I did that and I entered the Great Rift, I was like, oh man, it'd be crazy if I disconnected here or, lagged out. Actually, I think I even said it'd be crazy if I died. And I was like, but then again, I would probably have bigger problems if I died than just losing that gem that's on the ground in town.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I get in the very first elite pack, I vault up to, I'm fighting it as per usual. And then I start to notice that like my skills aren't doing anything, and I'm like, what's going on? That's weird. And so I kind of look around, look down, the bar for latency is still green. No one in chat has said that you're dropping frames or you're lagging or whatever, so I'm just like, maybe it's doing weird stuff. But eventually I noticed, yeah, I'm lagging like hard. I try to hit escape, the game is still playing in the background, and that's when you're pretty much done for, right?
Yeah,
because you can't even pause. So I start trying to vault back towards the door, and I kid you, I was probably 2 screens into this Greater Rift. It was a spire, and just couldn't do anything. Like, I was vaulting in place, essentially. And I'm just there screaming into the mic, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And of course it procs, and then the next, 2 seconds, that invulnerability, and then sure enough, just dead. So, pretty nasty lag spike. Thanks, Comcast.
I am familiar with your pain.
I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to be 9.
I'm sorry that you had to experience that.
Aren't you thankful?
I hope you're not thankful for that.
Not quite.
Yeah.
So I don't know now. It kind of puts my plans for next season into a bit of flux because I really wanted to return to hardcore. I miss it. I love it. It's my favorite way to play the game, but it feels really bad when, especially if you're doing solo self-found, because the progression is so slow. But that's what I really enjoy about it. But pretty much like any death, most things considered, you can get a bunch of backups and such. But because this one occurred so close to the end of the season, there was really no way for me to recover in time. When you're playing solo self-found, it feels really bad when you die though, because it's a lot of progression reset, particularly with the gems and stuff. You know, those are
Yeah,
the biggest times.
because leveling those gems when you don't have a dedicated group to go and speed through, the rifts just 10 levels higher than what you'd be doing solo. It's a pain, especially and then even more so complicated on the fact that it's hardcore because you're already playing at a safer level to begin with when solo.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Yep. And so you're getting into that realm of the 60% earlier, so it's going to take you more greater rifts in general. Yeah, man. So I don't know. I might go back to softcore crazy enough, unless I don't know. I might call Comcast just to see if they can come check the lines. We've been getting a lot of storms, and I feel like whenever we get storms, maybe the lines get bad or whatever. I don't know. They can come take a look.
It's a possibility.
Fingers crossed. If it's that simple of a fix, it'd be great.
Yeah,
because it hasn't really been that bad.
I do hope that our paths diverge at that point because all the calls that I've had to Comcast resulted in nothing.
Oh dear.
Yeah, like we were talking a little bit before we started the stream. Like my internet seems to have, at least now that we've replaced the Comcast equipment, my internet seems to have stabilized. Like I'm not dropping as many frames, but I'm still having the dips and a little bit of computery voices every once in a while there. Nowhere near as bad as it used to be. So there are still some problems with my connection, but it seemed, for at least me, it seemed to mostly be on the equipment. And I don't really experience too much lag while playing games, but there's an odd, disconnect or, stoppage of service every once in a while. It seems that at that point it's just on Comcast end, but every time that they've been out, they've not been able to identify any problems. So
it's so peculiar.
Yeah.
It is kind of, to bring it full circle, it's kind of funny that our biggest concern is the continued connectivity versus back in the day, like, you didn't even care if you dropped every now and again. You were just happy to have, like, better speed, It's like, oh, man, this is so much better than 56K once you got, like, DSL, and then you went to school and they had, like, a T1 line. You're like, oh, this is amazing.
Yep.
And now it's like, I lost internet for 5 seconds. What's going on, Comcast?
Yeah. The computer that's powering my heart it just got disconnected. What am I gonna do?
For real, man. Talk about altered carbon.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's not a spoiler though. It's not real, unless it is. But I don't know that is a thing in that. I've only seen one episode. Okay, moving on. What else have I done? So that's Diablo 3, and that kind of stopped me from playing for essentially then until now. Because at this point, it didn't really make sense to keep going, like I was saying. So I'm basically taking a nice big chunk of break and going to feel really excited when Season 13 rolls up, which we will also give you the date for in just a moment. But in the meantime, in between time, I've been still rocking WoW. I think I'm at level 65 or so, so I've been making some decent progress.
Nice.
Taking my time with it, queuing up for the dungeons and questing and such. And I think you were saying a couple episodes ago, like if I get to Northrend to try and speed through that, right?
No.
Which zone was it you didn't like?
You ended up now being able to take advantage of the new leveling curve, and so you actually can completely skip Outland because
Outlands, that's what it was.
You went to Northrend instead of Outland, which now covered the same block of levels for the leveling progression.
Yeah.
And so now I never have to do Outland ever again.
Praise be.
Praise be.
That's right. I forgot I did have two choices, and I was like, oh, Northrend sounds amazing, because I love that ice theme and Ice Crown Citadels and
it's still King. Yeah, it still is for many aspects, it's my favorite expansion, but thematically, it's one of my favorites. I actually just did a quest line for Death Knights at 110 that took me back to Northrend, and that was
cool.
That was so much fun. It brought back all the feels and the memories flying through Wormrest and Ice Crown.
Nice, yeah, it's cool, man. I just got flying because you unlock it regularly at 60. And it's crazy how game-changing that is when you can just fly through and over environments. But even half the time I just turn off the UI and look at the sky. I'm like, dude, this is like playing a movie, man.
It's beautiful, and it's
really cool.
It's funny because as you continue to go, Like when you were leveling through like the old world, that actually is newer than Northrend. Your 1 to 60 experience before you went to Northrend. All the graphics and stuff like that, that's newer. So you actually kind of
Oh,
like
because they
went
did
back in
that.
time.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So once you hit, what is it? I think it's 70. No, once it's 80,
80
you get
for
to
what, Panda, right?
Pandaria or Cataclysm. You get to choose.
Nice.
And so Kata would be, kind of like going forward a little bit, and then Pandaria would be going forward even more. I don't know which is the best route at that point. And then, unfortunately, for the last stint between 90 and 100, you have to go to Draenor.
The one that time wants to forget but can't forget because it
Yeah,
went back in time.
exactly.
Yeah, no, I'm still. It's fun though. I'm still learning it and enjoying being new, especially from the way that my brain kind of enjoys games. And a lot of what I've been kind of doing in my head is comparing the experience to like how I feel like it might translate to Diablo or just in general. Like this is the leveling up experience. Of course, it's much more prolonged. Like Knight was in chat one time saying, "So I guess getting to 70 takes a little bit longer in this game, doesn't it?"
It does.
Just a little bit,
Yeah.
but it's different. The new player experience, and thinking about how much Blizzard, or I guess the Diablo team in specific, has catered towards that 1 through 70, and even with like seasons and the seasonal journey, how it all speeds up. Because I could grab some heirlooms and speed it up for myself too, but it's taking a lot of time, which is kind of crazy as a new player.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I have a friend that's actually going through and leveling up. I forget. I think he's like doing a troll death knight or something like that. But even with like the boosts and heirlooms and stuff, it's still a grind.
Oh,
It doesn't go all that much faster. And I guess that's one of the big differences between like an MMO and like an ARPG, because in an MMO you are trying to create a more authentic experience, so travel takes time.
yeah.
It's travel is part of the experience. So all these things like you're trying to enact the feel of I'm going across the world. So it takes a while, to go and travel to any places. You've unlocked flying, so things can go a little bit faster because you can go to point A to point B without having to take flight routes and then hoof it on foot from there. But as you go to each like individual area, because like the new thing that they've started doing is they disable flying, and then you have to earn it. Like,
Unlock it.
well into the expansion. And so they craft an experience without flying, because when you can fly, I'm just going to skip all the hard stuff, get straight to the objective of the quest, and then I'm done.
Right, you're going to miss a lot.
Yeah. And so they did that to give you, I guess, a more immersive experience and to not kind of like cheapen everything.
Which makes sense, because imagine spending all that time on the art team crafting these beautiful cities and zones for you to only just look at the sky or some, to honestly fly and go like AFK, like looking at, Reddit or something and like, oh, I'm there now. Yeah, so I like that. I think it's a good compromise to still give people the freedom eventually to be able to skip around, but at least initially have to experience a lot of the world still.
Which I find interesting, like what they could do with the next potential Diablo game, because if they want to cater it more towards like a persistent world, because this is actually going to be like some considerations that will have to be within the game. That probably would be one of the biggest changes to like make a Diablo more of like a persistent, maybe not so much like an MMO, but like just like scope and travel would be so much different.
It really would be a big departure, because as you were saying, how much travel and time matters in MMO. I was thinking about Diablo 3 and like we have that waypoint system. Like you get from point A to point. Like people complain now that it takes them like 3 minutes to get to a level 2 barracks or something, right? So like imagine some quest where you're like 20 minutes away from the start to the finish.
Yeah,
it'd definitely be a very different feel. But another comparison that popped up in my head was Final Fantasy 12. One of the things I think kind of split people a little bit was that the zones in that game were it essentially played like a single player MMO.
Yeah.
Like you had to travel a lot, and there weren't really a lot of ways to speed it up. But I enjoyed that about it in particular because it really felt like they crafted a huge world for you to explore. You know, it was not linear, it was not, you know, on rails. You really could go far and wide.
Yeah, so if you were looking for like if you were looking for some of that immersion, you know, it was there for you to take part in.
Hmm. I'd love to see Diablo kind of widen its scope because I think one of the things I'm enjoying right now in WoW is that discovery, and maybe part of that is just the novelty of me never playing it before. But you know, being able to say I'm on this quest line or I'm trying to get something specific done, and then I happen to go the wrong way or kind of take the long way there. I discover another, you know, mini zone or sub zone, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on here. I'm like, well, I kind of want to do this because it's on my way, or you know, maybe not on my way, but I'm here now. And in Diablo, I feel like so much of it with that efficiency side of things, and you know, it probably does happen at some point in a while where I'll get to the point where I want to be really efficient with things. But I like the idea of just maybe being on a mission, but being able to divert your attention and do something else and get a reward from it, or have it still contribute to your overall progress, and then still have that, you know, carrot on the stick that you really were going for it to begin with.
Yeah. Well, once you get to 110, you know, eventually you'll be able to go and take a bit more of a Diablo approach to things, because then it becomes kind of the world quest system is like the evolution of bounties. I've talked about that before, you know, many episodes ago, like when Legion first launched. But the world quest system is definitely it's what bounties, you know, might become in whatever, you know, next iteration that they do for Diablo. And it's really cool, you know, because it's you know, go here, do this one little thing, and then you get a reward for it. You know, instead of having to do the whole act worth of bounties, it's just like the one off. But then they have a daily reset, you know, for, you know, do bounties for do like, you know, 4 world quests for this faction, and then you get a bigger reward, kind of like what you would for doing like the full act. But instead of being able to, you know, do it repeatedly like you can in D3 and WoW, it's, you know, it's a daily reset. You only get one every day. But, you know, the rewards, of course, in World of Warcraft, the way the loot system works, are a bit more meaningful.
Interesting. I wonder how many cues they'll take from, because if you want to almost track the post-release development of Diablo 3, it feels like they kind of, and we've joked about this in the past, right? Like, it almost feels like they essentially made Diablo 3, then they made the console version, which kind of reinformed what they went back to with PC. And then they released Legion, or sorry, and then Reaper came out, and then they released Legion. And I feel like Legion, you know, we were saying, has a lot of these sort of Diablo-esque elements to it with Mythic Plus and now World Quests and things like that. And so I almost wonder, go ahead.
In the Legendary system.
Oh, yeah. And you got Legendaries in there too now. So I almost wonder if, like, how much of that is improvements for WoW just because they want to do it, but also like these Diablo-esque elements in a bigger sort of MMO world, MMO type game. Are they testing waters perhaps to say, like, if we do a Diablo that's bigger in scope or more of like a Witcher or Skyrim, is that part of what it might look like? Will they inform some of the decisions based on how the players react to it in WoW?
It only makes sense. You know, it's not necessarily that they're doing like this as direct testing, but you know, whenever you go through, and that's something that they've talked about a little bit on World of Warcraft, is they did take a lot of the things that the Team 3 did, and, you know, it's like, this stuff is awesome. You know, give us more information on what it is that you did in your findings and your data, because we want to adapt it into our game. You know, like the whole bounty system and all that, absolutely phenomenal. We love it. Let's go through and do it. You know, like your legendaries and uniques, like in Diablo 3, we kind of want to do something like that in World of Warcraft. And so they went through and they did that as well. It's actually, you know, our man John Yang that's responsible for developing a lot of the legendaries in World of Warcraft. And that was one of the things that he was specifically tapped for and brought over from T3 was because of that. And so I do wonder, you know, what is it that they're going through and doing? Because, like, going into Battle for Azeroth, like, they're doing away with sets. So like World of Warcraft, they're just no longer going to have sets anymore, which I'm sure that alone, like, it would probably get some D3 players like excited. And the way that they're going to do about it is more kind of like these legendary type items that do modify like your abilities and such, that will give you more of like, there will always be the best build and the best way to play. But
Sure.
maybe if like these legendaries are like really super rare and you might only find like one a month or something like that, that will now have like you got the legendary, you've got that power boost, and so you're gonna build your play style a bit more around it. And I'm not 100% familiar with how the Battle of Azeroth loot system is, but they've got kind of like mini sets, because you're able to like go through its system. Itemization system allows you to like modify your armor and add stats or abilities to different pieces. So you can kind of like build and customize things the way you want them to, depending upon how you want to build. And that could be a very interesting, like, it almost sounds kind of like runes and like rune words. You know, obviously different armor pieces will only have limited access to certain skills or buffs, but it sounds a lot like they're kind of using that. And if they take that system and then modify that for an ARPG and bring that into the next iteration of Diablo, you know, like what could they use for that instead of having like a set or even like a true like legendary piece of gear. I get a gear and then I take it, I put a rune in a gem and a jewel and then like another rune in it in order to modify these stats and these skills, and you can just make anything your own. So you can go like, I want to play, you know, a golem build, and so it's like on all of my items, you know, it's like I'm gonna equip this rune to my chest, which makes my golem, you know, do AoE, and then this one increases his attack speed, and this one increases,
I see what you're saying.
you know, like his damage, and just like have all those little tiny bits and pieces that you can add up, and it's like a build your own set or like a build your own rune word.
Build-A-Bear. In a way, that kind of reminds me of essentially what PoE does. You know,
Yeah.
both from their socketing system with the essential, like, here are your support gems, here's the skill, support gems modify the skill, etc. And then the fact that you can actually take the currency and, you know, either alter the gear, you know, I don't know the exact nomenclature of everything in the game, but there are ways to get more sockets on the gear or to link the gear or link the sockets together in a more advantageous way. So it almost combines essentially the two systems of, here's a way to modify your gear and make it more, you know, towards your helping your build out. And then also within the gear, you can utilize, you know, these different gems to make your skills, the skills that you really want to prioritize better. So, I mean, there's an ARPG example right now that already does it. So what if Diablo essentially is testing, or Diablo, what if Blizzard is essentially testing something like that? You know, the iteration is bringing it over to WoW, but then we see the true form of it in Diablo.
Yeah. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, man. It's a fun time to speculate without knowing anything, because that is both the awful spot to be and the great spot to be, because it could be anything and it could be so far away from what we're talking about, right?
Yeah. Yeah, who knows what they could do? You know, they could double down on sets for all we know. But you know, it's just like you mentioned, and like what I've been saying on the past couple episodes. Now's the time to speculate, get the ideas and the thoughts and stuff like that out there. While it, you know, maybe someone on the team hasn't thought of it, or maybe some people are going through and, you know, arguing which way they should take the itemization system, and if there's enough, you know, discussion or chat amongst the community about favoring like a certain thing, like people are saying like this system in this particular game is awesome and what I would love to see in Diablo 4, and you know, then they decide they can use that as leverage. It's like, well, this is what the community is asking for, type thing.
Right, you're like secretly or unbeknowingly backing some dev that needs your help to like say why their idea rocks, you know?
Right.
It is an exciting proposition, because it'd be so cool to then get the game in your hands and put like, that's the thing we were talking about. They did it. And you know what's funny? We're still in weeks in gaming essentially, but
Effectively, yeah.
that also speaks towards where we are too, because there's not as much concrete news. So essentially, everything is just gaming in general, and us, having some thoughts about life and where things are going to go. Hopefully,
Yeah. Well, I know that you
um,
still have a little bit more to finish in weeks in gaming. That does it just takes me down a trip down memory lane for just a little bit.
yeah.
Um, this actually is starting to make me think about when we first started doing, the Diablo II podcast, because that was all the way
That
back.
predated the game too.
Yeah, that was like all the way back in like 2011, 2010. You know, and so it's like you like it was at least at that point. It's like it was like playable for like a little bit at BlizzCon, but like the demos that we saw at that point in time were nothing like how the game launched. And so it was a lot
It's
of
wild.
just it was a lot about trying to talk about a game that you have really no idea how the mechanics work. And now here we are, just kind of like we're talking about a game that we don't even know actually, what form or shape it's going to take, let alone even when it's going to be announced.
That's true. Wow, that gets me kind of excited for that first time that we will get maybe like a BlizzCon hands-on, and then have, however much longer until we get a beta or, something we can play in home to talk about everything and nothing at
Yeah.
the same time.
Yep.
Man, yeah, memory lane, dude. It's like things go around in those circles, right?
Yep.
Things tend to repeat themselves. The only other part I wanted to chime in on for weeks in gaming was just that I got a bonus at work, and so I decided to treat myself to some extra gaming, because I always I've loved the Pokemon series, but I haven't really played Pokemon in forever. And those who are OGs will remember Crystal, which is the second generation, kind of like how they always make like, here's your two versions, and then later they make that other version that
mix,
kind of
yeah.
combines the two. So Crystal was essentially the yellow for silver and gold.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the last time I really grinded Pokemon. So it's been a hot minute. And I decided to get a Nintendo 2DS because they had just released this cute Pikachu XL edition.
Mm-hmm.
So I got that, and then I grabbed Ultra Sun, which is kind of the like beefed up, better version of Sun and Moon, which were the last two gens that came out, or the last generation that came out. It's been great. I've been taking it really slow. It's the game that I play on my way to work. I have about an hour bus ride to and from. So, I'm only a couple hours in because I got it last week. And man, the game is beautiful. I know I haven't experienced that much of it yet, but it feels so deep. It almost gave me the same feeling of essentially a single player MMO, except you can actually do a lot more interaction with people online and stuff. I haven't even explored that part of it yet, but you don't need that person next to you with the Game Boy Link or whatever.
Yeah.
Remember back in the day, you can just pop on an actual wireless connection and wonder trade with people or battle people. So it's kind of cool. It feels big. It feels like a very, very, very big game. So I'm looking forward to playing it some more.
I always love that new game feeling. It's no matter how much you love a game, after you go through and you play it enough, it kind of that original like luster or feeling will always kind of like drop off a little bit.
Inevitably.
Yeah, but when you have that feeling, like when you actually just go through and you play like a brand new game that you like really enjoy and get into, and just everything is like magic and sparkles and wonderment, which I'm looking forward to God of War. I'm counting the days till April 20th.
They're releasing a game on 420.
Yeah. It's an interesting choice, but because God of War has been one of those series that has always been near and dear to my heart. I don't know if I'll actually be able to start this one on extreme, like I have for the past couple, but we'll have to wait and see. Oh, I like God of War. Those were my games. Those were like some of the few PlayStation games that I platinumed like every title.
I hope if you can finagle it all, I hope your internet is good and you can maybe stream it. That'd be fun to watch.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Maybe at that point I would just have to start it on extreme just to see how rusty I am at games.
Yes, it'd be like the best backseat thing. We'd be like, all right, is it gonna? Yep, he died again.
Died again.
Awesome. Yeah, man. I think that new feeling is kind of addicting because I think I got the bug when I started with WoW now, and now I'm just like, what other new games can I play? I'm looking at, I like opened Steam for the first time in 5 years and looking around there and stuff. So definitely want to be dipping my hands into more of these things.
Yeah.
So we'll.
Because there's a couple like just it's like always been like time permitting. Like I want to give Grim Dawn a shot. I want to give Divinity 2 a shot. I've heard a lot of good things about Divinity 2.
My old roommate was telling me it's great.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but awesome things, and it's also another one of those kind of more of like an open world, like ARPGs. Tomb Kings just came out for Total War Warhammer, which that's like one of my factions, you know, from the old Warhammer Fantasy days. So, man, just too little time.
That's what I was gonna say. There's a lot of. This is like the best time to be a gamer, but also the worst time to be a person because there's so much to do and so little time. We're all so busy. Yeah. Even if you're trying not to be, really, there's still just so much that commands your time. Hopefully we can get to at least a quarter of what we want, and then I think that'll still be good.
Yeah. Well, here's hoping. Here's hoping.
Yep. Fingers crossed, man. All right, you want to pop into the little bit of news that we got?
Let's go ahead and hit that stuff up.
All right. Well, Season 12 is still here, but only for a few more days because to this, it probably actually will be a couple of days. Season 12 was announced February 11th, 5 p.m. Pacific time, Blizzard time.
You might want to repeat that because you cut out.
Uh-oh. I'll give you the straight facts. February 11th, 5 p.m. Pacific, Blizzard, end of Season 12.
There you go.
There it is. So yeah, that's coming up this Sunday, which is interesting because the previous seasons, a couple of them have ended on a Friday, so that was kind of the going rate, and I figured that was going to continue, but then switched it up on us. And I was recalling, in fact, you know, Super Bowl just transpired, and I'm so happy you sent me that text because I was so like I was already just so happy.
Anyone that knows Leviathan knows that he absolutely hates the Patriots. So as soon as the Eagles won, I just sent him the message, you know, congrats.
My team wasn't playing at all. Like I had nothing to gain in terms of winning, but man, did I have a lot to gain in terms of them losing. Well, thank goodness.
It was your second favorite team, right? The team playing against the Patriots.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, man. But, yeah, so I think I looked it up, and Season 1 actually ended on Sunday, and in fact, it was Super Bowl Sunday that year, 2015. So I don't know if that was the last time it ended on a Sunday, but that was one of certainly the most memorable ones. And kind of funny, it's right within the same time span a little bit, you know, just one week later. And then you're probably wondering, even more curiously, when does Season 13 start? Because we usually get those two coupled together, and we did get that info February 23rd, 5 p.m. Pacific, a Friday.
That's
9.
A weird one.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is surprising, but I guess when you consider if there is no patch, right, no significant changes, it makes sense to go back to Friday because it seemed for the community, Fridays were favorable.
Yeah.
But of course, for the developers, if they were launching new patch, new changes, they would like that grace day of start Thursday, have Friday to fix stuff.
But it seems, I guess, at least, you know, they're taking the fact that there's no new update or patch or content or anything, and so this launch should go exactly the same as the last season launch, that they're giving us what we've asked for, which is the Friday season start date.
So happy. So it seems like the good compromise. Maybe this will be how it goes if they do, you know, down the line give us another patch of some stuff. Maybe it goes back to Thursday. And then if we go on that multiple seasons on that same patch, maybe it goes back to Friday. So
And that is
everybody wins.
yeah, and that's a very big question there. If
Right. Well, what happens next?
yeah, all eyes on season 14, season 13. Just it's like I'm sure season 13 will be nice and fun and all that, but yeah, everyone's looking to 14 right now to see what that means.
I guess even before that, is there going to be a PTR? Like probably
Yeah.
halfway into 13, people will start itching a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean that will be the big tell once April starts. Have we had a PTR or not? And then I guess does that Diablo really is kind of like Diablo 3 is more or less kind of like
Say it.
done maintenance mode.
Maintenance mode.
Can we say it?
Oh boy. Yeah, that really would kind of be the signal.
Yeah, because that would be the first time that we'd have two. I guess it would be 3 seasons in a row, or 2 subsequent season turnovers with no content.
Yep.
Yeah, which
Breaking news.
yeah, which again, we all expect would have to come at some point in time.
For sure.
We knew it would be coming, and of course the implications of that are awesome because they're working on something else.
Got to play the long con game.
Exactly. People can go on the forums and cry, "Oh, Diablo 3 is a dead game. There's no more content, nothing like that." But that means that they're working on the unannounced project. That means it's coming out sooner.
Yes, they're working in earnest. Yeah, man. And that is my hope. As much as it would be a bummer, as much as it would be sad to not get awesome updates. Diablo 3 to some degree has run its course too. We're coming up on the 6th year of it existing this May, and we've been saying all along they did a lot to improve it. Pretty much releasing Reaper and then from there on. I feel we've gotten as much blood out of the stone as we can get. It feels only so much you can do to put more band-aids on. Like, I want the next great invention.
Yeah, and especially if you compare D3 to like D2 in terms of the level of support and content that it's gotten throughout that time. Because D2 was pretty well supported, but you're talking like it was more like a yearly patch than
spread out
than like a seasonal patch.
That's right.
Yeah,
Definitely weren't touching it as often. One thing I did want to posit to, though, I didn't write it down because it was kind of an idea I was throwing around. But hear me out on this.
Okay.
How do you feel about if they continue to run subsequent seasons on the same patch, going to shorter lengths of seasons? And so I was thinking about it from a couple of different aspects, right? Previously, the reason it felt that seasons were as long as they were was because it was giving the developers enough time to put together a PTR, put changes out there, test stuff, get some of that back and forth iteration, feedback, etc. with the community, and then have enough time to get it all sussed out or get as much of it figured and bug fixed, and then put it into the next season. If that's no longer the case, why not reduce it to maybe 8 weeks per season? And that way you're getting a lot more of that turnover. And I think what people seem to really enjoy about seasons is that fresh start, right? Like there's so many people that pop in and are like, yes, a new season's starting up. And let me hit my first 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Okay, I'm gonna, I did my seasonal journey. I'm kind of done now. Let me go and do some other things. I wonder if they shortened it, if people would then kind of feel that like recurring, ooh, it's coming back sooner. I'm gonna hop back in again. Of course, the devil's advocate is that if you make the length shorter and the frequency greater, then it stops being as important or as like exciting. So maybe people opt out more. But the other side of it that I think is an interesting consideration is bots. So botting, the longer a season goes, the better the bots do, right? Because they can sustain that rate of play for as long as they, as long as time exists.
Yeah.
But essentially their advantage is lowered the shorter time span of a season. So I can compete with a bot maybe over the course of a month, 6 weeks, and then I might just have to extend for 2 more weeks and then the season's done. Versus 3 months, I'm like, man, the bots win. Like I can go 6 weeks and I'm done.
Yeah. That is an interesting consideration, and since there is no longer the timing of needing, or I guess the kind of like having the buffer for the development team needing that time to go through and push out an update. It's yeah, I think I like it. I think I like that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one con of like it maybe hitting people over the head too often with a new season, that is something that could potentially provide some burnout. But maybe it becomes a system where like you almost begin to target certain Hadrix gift sets, right? So like you might say, I'll skip season 15, and it doesn't feel that bad to skip a season because the next one's coming up relatively soon.
Yeah.
So even if it does incur that kind of like negative feedback, it's something that's mitigatable to some degree.
Yeah. I think that might actually be an interesting idea that might be worth exploring.
I was thinking I might do a video or something.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Shoot that idea out to the devs.
It's out in the world.
Yep, just put it out there. The thought is out there. It's part of the zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, well, speaking of the zeitgeist and being out there, we have one new thing. I guess is an old thing that's coming to light though with season 12. Would you like to enlighten everybody?
Yeah, kind of like on the heels of the Dead Ringer exploit, there is another exploit that's now being talked about that isn't necessarily new. That apparently it's been around for a very long time, years in fact. That it's kind of like, I guess, being called like the auto equip exploit. That even though you can't change your gear in a greater rift, if you have auto equip turned on, it will allow you to equip a piece of gear on the ground. And now this one is a very, very expensive exploit. So this is one that can't really be, I guess the gains are questionable, because what it's used for is like your boss killer, more or less, might just pick up like some general support items, like Oculus Ring, what is it, like strong arm bracers, stuff like that, things that will provide some sort of bonus to the group, as far as like damage output and things like that, that could help give a little bit more of a boost as you're clearing, since most are using like a necromancer, and they can't really do a lot outside of their cooldown.
Right.
And so that they're just sitting there and they're providing an extra Oculus Ring, circle buff, so that way you have better placement, maybe more spots for defense and offense. But when you finally spawn the Rift Guardian, they can port out, salvage the Oculus Ring, and then their real ring they have dropped on the ground that they can go through and re-equip. Now, like that's you can go full on and equipping like other pieces that might help or benefit the group, and then also what would be the trash clearer can then also kind of do the same and go and switch over to a piece of jewelry that then has a Bane of the Stricken equipped to it, to then come in and try and help kill the boss a little bit more efficiently as well. And so there's people that can go through and do it, but it does involve actually salvaging the piece of gear that you're replacing, because it's the only way to remove it from the slot, and then picking up the piece of gear that's on the ground. And this has been there, I don't know, it goes back to season 2 that this bug was first reported.
Yeah, I've heard it's been around for, like you said, years.
Yeah.
I mean, AutoQuip's been there forever. I assume just once legendary gems and those things became important enough, people were like, how can I game this?
Yeah. And, so it's going through and, being acting as a way that you can swap out legendary gems or, specific pieces of gear that might benefit the group in certain ways. And, yeah, and we have yet to see if there's anything that they can do about it. Whether it's disabling auto equip while a Greater Rift is in place, or making it so that way you can't salvage gear while a Greater Rift is in place. But yeah, that's the other big exploit that's out there that kind of is like hitting on top of what was already a huge community concern with the Bone Ringer.
Yeah, yeah. Season 12 has been through the ringer when it comes to a lot of this stuff, man. It's a bummer that I mean, maybe it's good that it's getting all of it out in one. Well, maybe it's all of it. Maybe there's more. All of it out in one go, so it just mars this one season, and hopefully it can get a lot of fixes to it all. I think it really elucidates a bigger issue, though, in that Greater Rifts, because of what they are and how they're tied to adventure mode, there should have maybe been an idea or a thought to make Greater Rifts exist kind of in the way that Challenge Rifts do, outside of interaction with the quote unquote open world or real world of the rest of Diablo 3, because it is such a supposed to be pristine environment where nothing, like, you cannot really interact with anything else. It's you and what you bring in versus what you find in the Greater Rift, right? So there should really never be a reason or a way to get out. I can understand, like, if a group is dying a lot and they need to repair, like, maybe that's why you need to have access to Hadrig or something. And maybe that's another thing too, right? If they try to disable Hadrig, like, well, then can you even repair your gear? Like, that could cause some different issues.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not an uncomplicated thing with the way everything is tied together. But hopefully, I would almost hope that it informs maybe the next game, right? In the way that they might keep competitive elements in Diablo, because I think that's one of the things that really separates D3 from any other ARPG. Even if you look at PoE, if you look at Grim Dawn, Wolcen, none of these games really have competition. And I think it's one of the things that gives the game a bit of that repeatability, that drive to keep playing day in, day in, day in, day in. Because you can get further, you can improve your mark, you can get a higher ranking. And it's such an important feature to the length and the health of D3. I hope that they can figure out whatever sort of things that have marred it along the way for the next game, so that if they do want to keep competitive elements, they're really hard to subvert.
Yeah, and I guess that'll be one of those questions I keep thinking about, like how successful in the long run were Greater Rifts, because it definitely adds certain demands on the need for balance within the game when you have that infinitely scaling difficulty. And that's something, kind of like going again back to like World of Warcraft, at the bleeding edge of progression content, when like a new raid comes out and people are pushing mythics, that we're gonna sit this one class for this other class for this fight because we need as much AoE as possible, and so we're just gonna go super heavy on, say, feral druids or something along those lines, for like they can do X mechanic, and so we're just gonna overload as much of this as we can. But then a couple weeks or a couple months down the line, and then your gear has made up for it, and so it doesn't matter. It's like we can now pull anything we want into this mythic and just run through it.
That makes sense.
As opposed to where in Diablo it's like, okay, we've cleared mythic, like the mythic raid. Now we're gonna go to the mythic +1, and now the mythic +2. So we have to constantly, every time that we do the next level of difficulty, we need those, those 15 feral druids, in order to do this, fight. And that's what Greater Rifts, more or less have done with Diablo, because there's always that one step more. So in order to get that highest rank that you have to bring the best composition with this specific gear and skill set, and there's not a lot of room for error. If you were just shooting to do Greater Rift 90s, it wouldn't matter. It would be at the beginning of the season, sure, you want to go through and run this setup in order to get there the quickest and most efficiently, and then a couple weeks afterward, everyone's running 90s. It doesn't matter. If they'll bring that back in the next iteration of Diablo, will it have something that scales infinitely, or will we have more of a flat difficulty, which then the game becomes, what can I beat this with? What stupid build can I do to beat this challenging content, this Greater Rift X or whatever.
I hope you almost end up seeing floors, because it kind of allows you to do both. If you, for instance, earmark, say they keep the Greater Rift system, right? Just for ease of conversation. If you had Greater Rift 70 and there was a board for it, and a Greater Rift 80 and there was a board for that, then maybe you have those people that still want to push to the highest Greater Rift possible. But then maybe you also have those people who are like, well, my gear is good for 80. I just want to see how fast I can do an 80. And they keep trying to refine and refine and refine. And then that could be a way to essentially say, we understand that there are players who just want to continually test themselves at like the edge of their skill or the edge of difficulty. And there are those who are going to resign themselves to just stick around, a certain level of challenge or level of difficulty. And have at it. There's at least a way for you to track how well or how much improvement you're gaining at that floor of difficulty. So maybe if they provide more options on how to measure yourself, then that could be something. And I think that kind of ties into what people want. It's not necessarily diverse endgame, but it's kind of just taking maybe that one type of endgame and splitting it up into different leagues or such. But it could assume that there's a way better way to do what I'm talking about that's not just a rehash of Greater Rifts, and maybe it splits out into different types of endgames.
Yep. Man, I guess that was one of the goals that they had for Diablo 3, was offering in-game content for everybody. That it's like that was part of the reason that they did bounties, was to offer you something to do other than rifts, and then now you also you've got bounties, rifts, Ubers, challenge rifts. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. Obviously, the main focus is Greater Rifts. So maybe if they did other things, like in World of Warcraft, you can just sit there. You don't have to do dungeons or raids. You can get more or less fully competitively geared out through world quests. It won't be as good as the person that's going through and doing mythic raids, but it's not like you're going to be extremely far behind.
Yeah, some sort of like systems where even though you've chosen a different path, it doesn't put you that far behind. And I think that you'll see something like that if, the next thing doesn't have like a Paragon type of system, or if it does, the effects of it aren't so stratifying, aren't so like gap widening, right?
Yeah.
So you can have maybe a renewable grind in that, constant experience coming in or whatever. Maybe there's another way for them to do that. That's exciting too. But yeah, I feel you in that. I think the limitations of player inefficient versus player power gamer shouldn't be so crazy wide.
Yeah.
In the next thing.
Yeah. Because like World of Warcraft, just thinking about it, they did also take another aspect of Diablo and the randomization of loot. And so, there's certain gear that you can get a piece of item, or you can get an item that will have like a tertiary stat randomly. Or it will have an upgraded item level, kind of like, how in Diablo everything has ranges. And then you also have that chance of getting, like an ancient or a primal ancient. Like the same thing in World of Warcraft. There's a chance that it will be upgraded by like 5 item levels, and then the same chance that it'll be upgraded, that like once it gets upgraded to those 5 item levels, that it might be upgraded again and again and again. So like there have been times as I've been going through and playing where it's like it was supposed to be like item level 910, and it ended up rolling like item level 935.
Oh, wow.
It's like the RNG gods were merciful, and it rolled up and up and up and up and up, and it became like what was supposed to be like just like this nice little upgrade became like an amazing upgrade.
Gotcha. But even with that being the case, if someone got just unlucky and they got the 910, are they still that far behind you, or is it just like a nice to have that it rolled as well as it did for you?
It's definitely a nice to have. They're not going to be that far behind because it was just a single piece of gear.
Gotcha. So yeah, I think that's when you kind of get to a really cool state of
Hmm.
gear matters, but it doesn't overwhelmingly
Yeah.
destroy the
Yeah.
ecosystem, you know?
And then of course the benefit for someone that does like raiding is that where that having that one piece of item level like 935 gear for me is like, oh, that's awesome, for my person that's just been kind of like geared up through world quests, as opposed to the raider that is just walking around, that like their baseline gear, I don't actually know, so I'm just guessing at numbers here, but like their baseline gear is just 935. So all of their stuff
Mm-hmm.
is 935. Where I have like that one piece that rolled well, like their one piece that rolled well is like 955. So they
Gotcha.
they have that advantage of doing the harder content. Their gear is like the same but better, in that respect.
Yeah, I think that's a solid way to do it. And I hope that it can translate, because in an RPG, I guess so much stuff is being thrown at you. You know, at some point you have to hope that one of those things is going to be really good, right? Or like at least
Hmm.
making sort of validating your continual quest to log in and get gear. And I
Hmm.
think maybe because WoW is what it is, because people are so used to MMO RPGs being the investment that they are, that process can take longer. But in an RPG, you kind of have to speed it up.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where you start to wonder how much do they tilt that meter, though, right? Because D3 is like a friggin', you pull the slot machine, you almost always hit the jackpot. It feels like,
Yeah. It's all for like D3. It really is just how much time do I want to commit? It equals how awesome the gear is, not necessarily what it is that I am doing. It's just how long I want to do it, more or
Yeah.
less.
Yep. Yeah, so I guess we'll see. It's gonna be our phrase for 2018. I feel
Yeah,
we will see.
we will see. Wait and see.
Mhm.
Uh,
But yeah, our next show
it's
will
like
be kind of. Sorry, I was just gonna say our next show will kind of be the seasonal preview show like we've had in the past, where
mm-hmm,
a couple days from then will be next season starting up.
mm-hmm. Um, yeah, I think the only other thing that we had to talk about that was if you wanted to go back. I briefly talked about like the whole druid in D3 scenario.
Yeah,
Um,
I did catch last episode, and I heard you
mhm.
talk about it a little bit, and you were saying you wanted to wait a little for me to come back. I didn't really have too much more to add, So I was kind of laughing when you were talking about it because I was thinking about what I would be saying, and what I what I want to say is kind of silly because have you ever created something and like halfway through creating it, you're like, I don't really know if I believe this, but I'm still making
I,
it.
I can't say I have.
It's a weird spot to be in because you know that you're giving an idea out there, but you're not really fully buying into your own idea.
Uh huh.
So I don't know. I think it was a cool Easter egg to find in the game, and it's definitely sprouted some talking, some conversation. Like Riker sends me messages like every other day. It's like, have you considered this? I was like, Riker, I'm not even thinking about this anymore. I don't even know if I ever believed it to begin with. But
Yeah.
like it I don't know, it's kind of a fun thing, I guess. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, like, we'll never know, right? So you could speculate until the cows come home. Hey, there are no cows though.
Hmm.
Uh, and unless some dev's gonna come out and say, like, yeah, man, we totally were gonna put Druid in here, but now it's not. But by the way, look to the BlizzCon 2018 trailer or something. I don't know. I
Yeah.
think I wouldn't be surprised if we were to ever finally get a retrospective or like what they call it, post mortem, like a full post mortem on things that could have been in D3 but weren't.
Yep.
That they were like, yeah, we're considering XYZ classes, and Druid turned out to be one of them.
Yeah.
Man, I want to see it though. I guess that's kind of the other point. Is I would like to see it in the next game.
Of course. I would like to see like in the next game. I want to see all the classes, from Diablo 1, 2, and 3 all together,
Whoa,
shooting for the stars.
that'd be huge.
Yeah, that would be quite the undertaking. But hey, maybe if they could do it in more like necromancer style. you know, launch like, you know, like here's 8 characters, and then we'll do another one like a little bit down the line, or another one a little bit down the line.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, or I guess maybe less Necromancer style, maybe more like Overwatch style. You know, instead of it being like a DLC that it's just that is just like
It's part.
part of the content that you paid for. That'll also, of course, always be like one of the bigger questions. Like in the next iteration of Diablo, you know, one-time purchase, microtransactions, subscription based. Like what are they gonna do? How will they support it?
I have to believe that. Well, I don't know because I'm thinking. So my first idea was I have to believe that because if you look at all the other Blizzard offerings, none of them are really going off of the buy it one time model anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm looking in the ARPG genre, and you have such a diverse way of selling it. Like Grim Dawn is essentially the same model of, you know, you buy this, you buy the expansion, you're not really buying much else. Path of Exile is all microtransactions, free to play. So you could really take it either way. I hope that I feel like the most profitable model for them and for us is really the free to play microtransactions, because it essentially allows us to say we want you to keep continuing to improve this game until we don't.
Yeah.
You know, like if I stop buying stuff and everyone else does too, like 18 years down the road, then yeah, like why would you make anything anymore? Because there's no more money coming in. But if we're still buying actively more stash tabs, more wings and crap or whatever, 20 years, like there's still probably reason for you to keep making it then, right?
Of course. And it's like, you know, if you make it with like a robust enough engine that you can continue to develop on for, you know, 7-8 years down the line without it becoming like too dated, that would of course be, you know, even more beneficial. You know, or even something like with World of Warcraft, where they've had massive engine updates, you know, a couple of times, you know, through its lifetime.
Yeah, I guess that would be the only thing, is keep it looking like it's relevant with the times. And you know, it's probably a wild expectation to think that any game. I feel like WoW is in such a rarefied air that it's still going for so long. It's hard these days to really think of a game that persists for multiple years before it's like redone or like retooled or sequeled or something, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like if you can get, I honestly feel like if you get 6 years, 5+ years out of your game like D3's gotten, I think that's probably a good to great benchmark for one title in, you know, the 2010 plus era of gaming.
I definitely agree. That it's awesome for what it is, and we can only hope. I guess trying to put my thoughts into words, that'd be more of like not so much like a living game, but at least one that you know that you're going to get, that you can show, like you were saying, like you can show support, you know, for the title, that hey, we're still giving you money, we want to see you to continue to develop for this title. And so maybe then at that point they can see, well, okay, well then we're going to come out with another expansion, you know, like 2 years from now, and then like another expansion like 2 years from now, like these nice big robust like content or engine updates or what have you, or new classes and stuff, you know, because people continue to go through and buy like the little cosmetics and transmogs, pets and stuff like that, to show that there is that continued level of support, that it is worth putting the time in to make a new expansion.
Absolutely.
And so that way it becomes more of like a living title than a numbered iteration.
Yeah, you essentially just make like, you know, and maybe that's why we've been saying this whole like, you know, Diablo 4 next Diablo or whatever. Like maybe it doesn't need a number. Maybe it's just like Diablo.
Yeah.
Return to Diablo or something, and then it is just the Diablo game, you know?
Yeah. It could it could very well be that. Who knows?
I did have a question for you though. Do you feel, so I was looking in chat and seeing Jester's comment that Skyrim, you know, different genre, but still around essentially for the same time span as D3. I think one of the reasons that is because it's modded a lot, right? People have found mods to update the graphics in that game, to add a lot of content to it. I'm asking, do you feel that do you think that they'll ever allow modding of their games again? Because it really was one of the big departures, I think, with D3. That, the reason that it's online only and, the DRM and all that, like, you can't mod it. And it doesn't really seem to be a thing. I may be out of touch because I'm not playing as many games as most people.
Hmm.
But is modding really still like a part of games? It almost feels like if you want to mod, you basically play these open world games like Minecraft or something where you just make it yourself.
Yeah, I mean that is one of the big things for like that genre, like is the mods. Your Skyrim, like your Fallout and such, that they have like this whole separate level of gameplay and communities that are like super involved into that. We're gonna make all the dragons in the game. What was it? Thomas the train engine or whatever. And so that they have that, and I guess it's not so much that D3 was like a departure, is because I doubt that they really ever intended Diablo 2 to like fully be modded. It's just because the nature of the way that the game was that allowed people to go in and mod it, and so they took part of that aspect, like a lot of the monster AI and skill interactions, and made them server side, so which then made it modding not impossible but extremely difficult, much in the same way that like World of Warcraft, a lot of those same things were handled on the other side, but it had enough of a draw that people sat there and they kind of like reverse engineered, and they made the private servers for WoW. If someone had
Yeah.
the time and inclination, they could do it for D3, I'm sure. But I guess no one has been I guess has seen as much of a reason to invest that much time and energy into it for not a lot of payoff, I guess. But that going back to the main point, that user generated content is of course something that keeps those games afloat like much longer than a lot of other games that came out at the same time, solely because, well, the developer really doesn't have to do much for the game. That the community itself is what keeps it alive. And is that something that they could do? I don't know. Like Star Trek Online, did something similar. That they have tools that you can create your own missions, and they, some of them were exploitive in how fast you could, farm gear and experience for like leveling and things of that nature, and they had to go back in and change it. And so they took away like that aspect to get rewarded for playing it. And it's just like, well, as long as you played this number of these user-generated content that were at least this length of time, we would then give you a reward from like this quest, type thing. And so they made it like a sub thing. Now there was some sort of nice daily reward that you could get from it. But otherwise, it was just like some of those like user-generated stories had like they actually had like just really good stories involved, and they were fun to play, to see what ideas people could go through and generate of like stories that took place within like the Star Trek universe, like these little fan storylines, and some turned them into series, and you were going and doing kind of like almost episodic content. It was like almost like a game within a game type thing.
It's like taking fan fiction to a whole new level.
Exactly, and it's something that they could easily do with the next iteration of Diablo if they wanted to. It's something that could extend its lifetime.
I feel like it marries an idea to this topic with something you I think talked about previously, which was kind of the idea of like craftable greater rifts or something, right? Mm-hmm. So we keep going back to greater rifts because it's a thing that we know. It's a reference point that everyone knows. So yeah. Who knows if they'll exist in the next iteration of the game or the franchise? But in any case, it's almost like a compromise of, we're not going to let you modify our game fully, but we will give you tools to essentially like throw a challenge. Like, what if I want to say 9? I've got this crazy idea for a greater rift. I think your demon hunter might be up to the task. I crafted it. You try it. Maybe you like it. there's a marketplace for people to like, and when I say marketplace, I don't mean like buy them or anything, right? But just like a sort of a user search generated thing where you can go and see what people have created. And like you were saying just now with the Star Trek example, maybe they add a reward for trying them out, and not even anything like incremental or for the game per se, but maybe like a title or a cosmetic or something to show off that you are trying out a ton of these maps and just destroying them. You're that good at the game. It could be a way that the game still is in Blizzard's control, but they gave a little bit of power to the players to keep content created.
Possibilities.
Right?
All possibilities. And then now I'm just going through and thinking of someone making like a challenge rift that's like nothing but automatically exploding grotesques. That it's more of it actually like a timing game. Yeah, that you have to, it's like they're all going to sit there and explode, and you have to like ride the wave of like the exploding grotesques and find the path through this field, without dying.
Oh my goodness. It actually, you know what it would be? It'd essentially be like the Mario Maker Diablo RPG version.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking like, well, here's the check, right? You have to beat your own level. You can't make this ridiculous thing that you can't even beat. So like to upload it or whatever, which is kind of the check in Mario Maker. Although people found out cheesy ways to like make dev doors and stuff that they hide. You'd have to beat that same grotesque, crazy map that you created in order to, send it over to Nineball to challenge.
Yeah.
That'd be so much fun though, because you know what it reminds me of when we were first data mining all that like Devil's Hand stuff, and there were like the arcane beams that would follow you around or something. There were like all these weird strings that we didn't understand. Could almost be things like that, right? You take the mechanics of the game and just make them operate in very, very weird ways.
Yeah, which it does look like they had worked on something similar to that within the game that was then later scrapped. There was like explosions, or you said like arcane beams that followed you, and like you didn't have any gear, and other mods you only have like 5 HP, and things of that nature that heavily modified what you did. That it wasn't just about killing; it was more of like a skill-based game of dodging like these environmental effects, almost kind of like a platformer.
Yeah. Yeah, like it basically create a new genre within the same game that you already made for this one genre.
Yeah, that's that's cool. That's innovative. That's something that could give it more life.
Yeah. Hey, that's how we got Dota.
Yeah, I mean exactly. Look at what that became.
Yeah, it was mildly successful.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
Just a little bit, just a tad, just a tad.
Yeah, man, the future's bright. There's a lot of great ideas. I mean, between the two of us, we've come up with a bunch of things here, right? Imagine, a dev team with experience and all the time in the world to do this and get paid for it.
Exactly. And you guys can, credit us and add our name in the credits. We'll allow it.
Yep. I'll be looking for it.
Yep. You got anything else, or time to hit the community section?
Yeah, I think I'm ready for some community.
All right. Well, let's see. Our first set of emails here, this actually comes in from Wiley, who is the winner of the Necromancer contest from our last episode. He actually went through and responded back. As soon as I can pull it up here. So just listened to the latest episode last night. Was delighted to hear the props for answering the original question correctly. And a special thank you to the guy who passed on the Necro, allowing me the opportunity. That's Watson again, was the one that provided us with that key. I'm now sharing the episode with friends and family to continue the joy. Since I'm only a NS player, not sure what that is. Non-seasonal player. There we go. I figured that I could enjoy the new class, but replay story mode, which I haven't done since the day one of the expansion. Loving it. Yeah. The Necromancer story was a lot of fun, and one of the interesting things that not a lot of people realize is that the dialogue between the male and the female Necromancer are actually rather different. It was the first time that they did that. Pretty much for all the other classes, the male and the female, the dialogue mimics one another. Like they're the same like general mindset, but the male and the female necromancer actually have more distinct personalities.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So just there you go. You might find yourself playing through the story mode yet again.
Get you a second time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That was that one?
Yep.
All right. Well, I got the next one then. This comes in from Absolute Zero. And he says, greetings from the frozen Midwest. Since you fellas asked so nicely what the community would like to see in the next Diablo installment, I would like to put my 2 cents into the hat of opinions. I'd like to see the character class selection be expanded upon some old classes that are brought forward. I was a huge fan of the Amazon, yes, Assassin and Druid in D2, because their skill sets were quite different from the rest of the crew in terms of the playstyles. For example, the Amazon. What it boils down to with the Amazon for me is management. What I mean by this is managing health, mana, and the amount of arrows and javelins that you have left in your quiver or back pocket, while still trying to hunt down demons. And the other classes to me, barring Necro, seemed pretty straightforward on how to use them properly. Assassin was the master of stealth and traps, and the cunning nature of her skills from the trap's path made me think about how to play differently than just your typical run up to a monster /// collect the loot, or shoot from a distance until enemies are dead and loot corpses. And then the Druid, well, where do I start? Summoning a raven to pluck out the eyes of the enemies? Check. Transforming into a werewolf and infecting mobs with rabies and poison? Double check. Conjuring a volcano to shoot out molten lava rocks at your foes while standing in the eye of a hurricane? Check, please. That's all I got. Anyways, love this show. Absolute Zero. That is cool. I think that is one of the things that I personally found intriguing about the Demon Hunter in D3 was that dual resource. And, you know, the first time you saw that, you're like, what the heck is this? This bulb is split in two, and there's management on both sides, one defense, one offense oriented. I thought that was pretty cool. And yeah, more ways to play around that. Even as I'm, you know, starting to relate things back to WoW, like as a hunter in there, trying to essentially manage both my pet and myself. And, you know, my pets have their own focus, and then your hunter has their own focus, but your focus can generate attacks for your pet, you know, with kill command and such. So it's kind of interesting when you do have the mechanics of keeping everything in line, being, you know, in the fray, but taking damage, but trying to like mitigate damage and also trying to get damage out, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's one thing that I found that World of Warcraft has done very well, and that the differentiation between the classes more comes down to how you generate and spend your resource more than the actual difference between the skills. You know, it's like that's the biggest thing about how each individual class plays, is more of its resource mechanics than anything else.
Yeah, so I won't really know that until I try another one, but that's kind of cool. So basically, like, everyone has probably like your standard AoE or standard single target, etc. But you're saying more like, you know, what you press when you press to activate regen or spend matters based on what class you are.
Yep, because especially like if you were to go through and like play a warrior, you know, it's like your focus doesn't like regen over time. It's rage. It's a lot like the barbarian. You only generate it like through using certain skills, and then you spend it, you know, using others. Whereas other ones, you know, like a Death Knight is more of like a timer-based system where all of your skills, the majority of your skills are based off of runes, which have regeneration time based on them. But then you have as you spend those runes, you gain a secondary resource, which you can use on other skills, which usually will have some mechanic of causing your runes to come back faster. And so it's kind of like efficiently using like those two, the interplay between those two resources to have the most efficiency out of it.
I wonder what's the most fun, because I think to some degree players do like, because you see it a little bit when players are like, bring back the auto turret build with you know, the auto firing sentries with M6.
Yeah.
And you know, players kind of like easy mode stuff where they don't have to think too much. But then I think there are a subset of players that really like, if I hit this skill at this certain time to bring back this cooldown, to hit that, my rotation is perfect, I'm doing the best DPS. Like, they love those challenges as well too.
Yeah, which, you know, you might have actually enjoyed like old school like Burning Crusade hunters, where the whole point was you needed like the weapon speed of your weapon mattered like more than the damage, because you had to have a really slow weapon because your skills didn't interrupt your auto attack timing as long as you clipped it within the animation. And so you had to have like a weapon that had more than like a 2 second interval in the auto shot, so that way you could weave aim shot in between your auto fires.
Oh, for like the global cooldowns and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
And yeah, because it's like the aim shot had like a 2 second cast time, and so you had to weave it in between like your shots without clipping into the animation, because otherwise you lost damage.
You'd be cutting your DPS. Wow.
Yeah, and so your skill really came down to how well you were at the timing in between those attacks.
That's some next level micromanagement. Yeah, I do.
Oh, yeah.
I love things like that because it's a cool challenge to yourself to say, I am actually getting the most out of my class by my ability to notice and, be right on the edge of getting it all lined up.
Yeah, or as opposed to like paladins at the beginning of the Wrath of the Lich King, which were literally one button. because the way that the old macro system worked was that you would have you'd put all of these skills in a specific sequence in the macro, and so it would always use the first one. So you'd press the button, and it would check each individual skill. Can I use this? And then go to the next one. Can I use this? Go to the next one. If it's on cooldown, it would just automatically skip.
Like skip to the next one.
Yeah, and so the whole thing was they just had a priority system using these skills in this order of priority. And so they put all of it into one button, and there was no differentiation between like top skill or not. You press that one button, and that was it. And you just pressed it as fast as you could, and that they actually had to change the way the macro system worked in order to counteract that.
Yeah, I was reading up on macros last night, and I was like, oh, this doesn't seem like what I would understand macros to be, but now that you mention that, then that actually explains quite a bit the reason they work the way they do now.
And then they actually came out with an add-on, which was just, it would change, it had the priority system built into it, and it would change the skill on the button.
Oh, no.
to correspond to which one was off of cooldown.
Oh,
and then they changed that. There's so much between like macros and add-ons, over the course in history of people breaking the game with them.
That's funny.
Lovely little trip down memory lane.
You're the historian, man. Got all the history. Got all the stories.
I try. I have a reputation.
Hey.
Was that the end of the email, or did I segue in the middle of it?
No, that's it. Just
okay.
Some classes in the future.
Yep. All right. Our next email here comes from D3 Archaea. This one comes in, sup fellas. Okay, I own it. I didn't go back and find out where that saying was from, but I'm just gonna flow with it. There you go. I meant to write in after listening to episode 132 because I have a story idea for Diablo 4, but I just didn't get around to it. When I listened to episode 133, I thought for sure someone was going to say the same thing or something very similar. I mean, it isn't really a new idea, just new to Diablo as far as I know. But it didn't happen, so here it is. So after D3, you have the all-powerful Nephilim, and possibly some other slightly less all-powerful Nephilim. I like that concept, slightly less all-powerful. Just all sitting around doing nothing. What happens? Well, we all know that power corrupts, so the hero of D3 becomes the villain of D4. Corrupted by his or her overwhelming power, the Nephilim decides to conquer Sanctuary and then moves on to Heaven and Hell. At least some of the lesser Nephilim join together with this person. Heaven and Hell then join forces to fight off the Nephilim, but they're still losing. So the most powerful of the angels and demons have already been defeated, and the remainder of the leaders, from these forces then put together a mission of these lesser angels and demons to gather together pieces of the shattered world stone to construct some sort of artifact that might be capable of overwhelming the Nephilim or limiting their power. Even knowing that this might have overall consequences, for the rest of creation. Alternatively, if we envision the pieces as enormous chunks of stone, maybe we could travel around these to various places where the slabs are and perform some other rituals or anything that will connect them together for the desired effect. But you are one of these angels or demons, and the chapter bosses are the Nephilim, one of each class. And then each playthrough, the class of the boss for each chapter can change and become different. And it's like, chosen at random, maybe follows a pattern, what have you. And that this could be fleshed out a lot more, but that's just the skeleton of it. And then back to the here and now, since the season will either be over or close to it by the time that this particular show happens, I'll give you an update on my progress. I've been kind of on a break from Diablo and just started playing again yesterday. However, I achieved all but one of my seasonal goals. The one I missed was the top 10 of 2 conquests of the leaderboards on the PS4. I got second place on one, and my next highest was 13th because I waited too long when attempting the thrill. Since I missed that goal, I raised an old goal that I didn't get in season 10 or 11, and that was complete all 10 conquests and get the maximum possible score on seasonal achievements. With a little bit of help, I did manage that for the first time this season. I also hit my highest ever hardcore Paragon, which sadly is still less than 700. Although I've got some time, so maybe I'll try to hit 800 before the end of the season. Love the show. Keep on listening, even though I actively wasn't playing Diablo 3. So keep it up. Thanks. Thank you for that email. And it is an interesting story idea because it would kind of flip the whole Diablo story narrative on its head, where you then play as an angel or a demon fighting against humanity instead of humanity fighting against angels and demons.
That also would call into question some interesting implications on classes, right? Like, do you have multiple classes that are angel faction and demon faction, or do you just play an angel or a demon? Or, because people are like, we want, we have 7 now, we want 10 classes, 12 classes, and this would be like, here's 4 or here's 2.
I mean, there would be, I don't know how you would actually flesh it out, but there would be at least the capability of having there's the 5 more or less factions of heaven that they kind of alluded to, because you have the archangel of wisdom, valor, justice, hope, and fate.
Okay.
And each one of them had a specific realm within the high heavens that brought with it certain connotations, and they fleshed it out a little bit more in the Storm of Light, where some of the fledgling Nephilim were going through heaven to steal the Black Soul Stone, and each one of these different areas had profound effects on the psyche of the mortals that were there as they traveled from one to the other. And then, of course, you have the seven lords and regions of hell that you could then build off of, for demons.
So you're saying there's 12 classes right there.
12 classes. Let's do it. 12 classes.
Oh, I call dibs on the grotesque class. Where your ultimate move is just killing yourself.
I'm just going to explode. But then,
dude, this is the new exploit, right?
No. It's the Diablo version of Diva. So you don't actually play as the grotesque. You play as the eel, and you run the grotesque in. You explode and kill stuff, and then you play as the eel until you build up enough energy to then reform the grotesque.
Oh my god, dude! You just took it to the next level.
Signed, sealed, delivered. It's yours.
Why isn't this guy a developer yet, hello?
Blizzard, I'll be expecting my interview anytime soon. You can call me at the number. You've got my contact info already.
Yo, eel class first DLC. Oh my gosh. I'm just imagining like the sizzle reel is just this tiny eel. Like, you can't even make that cool, man. How do you make that cool? You'll find a way. I know you will.
We will. It's an electric eel.
Oh, ooh, girl. All right. Before we go off the deep end, we have a few more emails. This one comes
too late
in.
For that.
Yeah, true story. This one's from our buddy Seahawk15. Writes in saying, "Sup, fellas. Just wanted to chime in on a few key differences between PC and PS4 and presumably Xbox One leaderboards. I'm going to talk DH, Wizard, and Necro, since that's what I played mostly this season. So for the Demon Hunter, the big difference here is that a larger percentage of the boards on PS4 are all Impale compared to PC. And the other thing that I find odd is that it seems Bane of the Stricken is used in place of Pain Enhancer on PS4. Not sure I understand that one. Wow, me neither. There are a couple of UEMS and M6 builds in there, but it's 95% Shadow Impale. I'll be pushing a Lightning Impale the last weekend to see if I can crack that top 100. Currently, I've cleared a 103, and I'm sitting at 138, but I think I can go 3 to 4 higher. As far as Wizard goes, big story with them on PS4 is the DMO Twister. It has the high clear for the season at 127 on PS4. At one point, I looked at it's so silly. At one point, I looked at the top 150, and I think 1 or 2 were something besides DMO Twister. The Twisters still stack on PS4, and you can channel and cast Twisters simultaneously, which I understand you can't do on PC. That makes sense that that is there.
Yeah.
And so that's why Firebird and Tao's Meteor seem to be the go-to build on PC. I've personally cleared 110 with this build, and see if I can go 115 by season's end. Lastly, Necro. The interesting thing here is that there's a couple of prevalent Poison Corpse Lance builds that use Revive instead of Blood Rush. There's also standard Pestilence Cold CL builds, which is what I've been using, but didn't spend as much time here. I only cleared GR94. I just thought it was interesting that Revive was in play for some builds in the top 100. And if you want more detail here, let me know, and I'll be happy to give you the breakdown. I think most of these differences are just due to the fact that you can channel one skill while using another on consoles. Hope you guys find this interesting. Love the show. Keep up the good work.
So
I wonder...
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. We both sparked some interest in us. I wanted to say for DH, I wonder if a lot of that has to do with just the targeting mechanics, right?
I actually want to say that probably is the case for almost all of those differences. Is because remember, like with the Meteor builds, like on console, the Meteor drops a set distance away from the Wizard.
Oh.
And so you have a lot less control over your placements.
That's a good
whereas
point.
something like the DMO Twister, you actually do have control over it.
And it's like aim and click.
Yeah.
Or point and shoot.
Yeah, same thing for like, you know, M6 build on a Demon Hunter. Like your cluster arrow is always going to go like the same distance away. You know, and so like with Impale, it's always going to be like this set specific. You know, you're gonna go through, and it's like this direction. It's always going to go that one. So it's nice, it's easy, it's consistent.
Yeah, you can control it.
Yep, and then like with Pain Enhancer, because you know your vault is a little bit not as easy to control about keeping where you are to have everything that with bleeds around you and such. It probably just comes to the mechanics of how the game plays with that gym choice. I imagine for like the Necro is probably very similar. You know, Blood Rush is going to just be a set distance away. You can't control where it is that you're actually going to be going to, so that teleport skill might be less useful. And so in place of it, well, you know, I guess just using Revive to, you know, like survive more or less.
Okay, yeah. I think all those seem like very reasonable guesstimations as to why that would be the case. Yeah. So that is really interesting, though, that it actually, due to the controls, albeit the constraints of the controls, it actually creates a new meta for solo pushing from one platform to the other.
Yeah, and I have to say, I think that this is my favorite email that we've gotten in a while, just because, you know, we don't get to look at the console side of things all that often, and so it is, to me at least, really cool that we see some of these mechanical differences in the effect that it has on the meta, like you mentioned. It's those tiny little things that they can change, like just the mechanics of how certain things interact with one another. And your top builds just across the board change, like with the Wizard, you know, as being like one of those big stark differences.
Yeah, and I think it's also probably a testament to the players that, you know, it could have been very easy, especially when you look at content creation for Diablo 3, and much of it is PC focused. So it could have been very easy to just say, well, these are the guides I'm seeing, I'm just going to copy that and try to do it on console, you know, uh, mobility or ease of play be damned.
Yeah.
But some players obviously took it upon themselves, like, well, this clearly isn't working the way it's supposed to on console for the way that it works on PC. There's got to be a better way to make a wheel here, and figured it out.
Yep, they're dedicated to that.
That's really cool.
Our next email here comes in from Sergeant Psycho. Sup, fellas? All good things must come to an end. This is the last week of my long vacation. I'm settling in just fine in eastern Westmarch. I've had the time to recharge and see friends and family, even my sister in Kingsport. And as of last Thursday, my good news has been confirmed. I've officially been promoted. Congratulations, man. And for those in the community who'll understand, I'm officially Staff Sergeant Psycho. So next week I'll be back to work, but I'll also be back to slaying the multitudes of angels and demons in Sanctuary. It's good to be back. May your Season 12 be complete and your Season 13 be lucky. So, hey man, thanks for the update there, and congratulations on the bump up.
That's awesome.
Some extra stripes there on the shoulder, I believe, if I remember my badges and ranking correctly.
Sounds good to me. We'll have to update in the show notes, Staff Sergeant Psycho now.
Yes, we will.
Pay respects. All right. Well, you always complain about having to read these.
All of you, buddy. All of you. I'm sitting back for the show on this one.
Oh, God. So, for those of you who have been following this, can I call it an epic saga of emails from Funktropus? We got 2 this week, or for this episode. And I signed them both to myself. Somehow, even though 9 didn't believe me that it's usually random, I mean, I really do just assign them to 9. In any case, though, I got this. All right. Here we go. So, first one from Funktropus says, okay, B-Waby. Y'all's storyline hypothesizing got my creative juices fliznowing, so here is my foray. Time has passed since Malthael's defeat, and the forces of heaven and hell grow uneasy. For thousands of years, the eternal conflict raged as a two-sided affair. With the potential victor achieving unparalleled power, the Nephilim has changed the math. Now humanity could wield ultimate power, with generations of Nephilim passing power down to the next. Heaven and hell could be subjugated. Now eternal enemies are rethinking their loyalties. Imperious broods under the crystal arch. Teriel hears whispers of shadowed and light emissaries meeting in ancient places. He knows what's coming. Both heaven and hell need the world stone reforged to rebalance power. Humankind is a problem without an answer. Perhaps Malthael was right. Teriel begins his own diplomatic recognizance. There are those who are wary of the eternal battle, and what has it accomplished? Sanctuary's very establishment was an attempt to find peace. Perhaps having humanity as a third power to be reckoned with will create a stalemate which no side can break. Or perhaps it is good that the most powerful beings in creation are mortal. Is that not true balance? Death and life locked together. What's this? News reaches Teriel that the all-powerful Nephilim defeat Malthael and... Oh, wait, that defeat... Oh, sorry. News reaches Teriel that the all-powerful Nephilim that defeated Malthael has been assassinated. How can this be? No one could defeat the Nephilim. The Nephilim was caught unsuspecting by an angel assassin. So it is true, there is an alliance that has been forged. Teriel realizes that he must find a new Nephilim to train to empower before it's too late. They will try to reforge the World Stone and the Black Stone. That is but one piece to the puzzle. There is no time. Boom, Funktropus. So I guess that was his take on the potential lead-in to the next game where the story could go. And in case that wasn't enough, apparently his creative juices were just gushing.
They were really flowing.
Yeah, like we need a dam here. Okay, another round of thoughts. I hit you with the story, and now I hit you with the gameplay.
Slap!
Slap! What a 5-finger say to the face. Here are my thoughts on D3 endgame character progression with callback to D2 progression. I have 2 main problems with the endgame in D3. Build homogeneity. Let's face it, you want to do kick-ass greater riffs and push, push, push. You gravitate to select build, the gear maxes out, you have limited gear combos, skills become fixed, and we are left to grind augments and legendary gems doing the samey riffs, bounties, over and over and over again. And number 2, the Paragon grind. It relates back to number 1. The higher your Paragon level, the more powerful the character. So why are these problems? For one, I think players naturally are going to gravitate towards specific builds that are more powerful. And I mean, I love variety, but I also revel in pushing each build towards max Greater Rift level. I naturally gravitate towards leaderboard builds because the other thing I love is feeling powerful. And vaporizing mobs on T4 is not as fun as vaporizing them on T13. As we all know, power significantly reduces the number of possible builds. And then 2, the grind. Once gear is found, and how long does it really take to get the right gear combo for a build, D3's power boosts don't alter the feel. So now all I can get are ancients, now all I can get are primals, now I can augment. Okay, regardless of power boosting route, gameplay doesn't change at all as you increase your power level. The thing I loved about D2 is that your builds were always changing. Rune words, gems, extremely rare gear. You could get super powerful and still have a build that's constantly mutating. The problem I had, though, with its power level of the competition maxed out, and face rolling everything was the max possible level, that can get boring. Which is why people started asking themselves, how weird can my builds get? So if D2 had greater rifts, we would probably also have moved towards same builds, but I would argue it would happen slower because the variety of power building routes in D2 takes longer to fully explore than it does in D3. So then, what will it take for D4 to build on earlier titles and be better? A few thoughts. I think part of the reason Diablo games are the bee's knees is that both solo and group play is possible and lots of fun. I truly believe D4 should maintain the option for fun solo play as well as group play, hopefully with PvP. Hopefully. I'm an old man with a stressful career who has never played WoW because I don't want to have to bother at group play dynamics. In Diablo, I can team up with a limited number of peeps for 15 minutes of bounties or greater rifts or whatever with no real effort. Or I can do it 100% solo. Both are fun. 2, good endgame for me requires 2 features. A, power progression. I love greater rifts because there is always a new level of challenge to conquer, while levels that used to be hard are a splatterfest. I can feel myself getting more powerful in D3, and also B, variety in the endgame. Builds should mutate with time so that more powerful equals a new playing experience. So how can we accomplish this? The builds are determined by 2 things, the skill and the gear, and in D2 and D3, we can change gear through jewels and rune words, but skills are relatively static in both. D4 would open limitless builds and limitless powers if skills and gear were mutatable. Let's take a D3 skill, Haunt. What if you gain skills like Haunt with level, as currently in D3, but then you could constantly manipulate Haunt with a wide variety of augments, which, like runes in D2, you found as level and difficulty progress. In addition, you could decide whether you wanted Haunt to hit more enemies or do poison damage, fire, whatever. It would take time to gradually add more and more functionalities to the base skill to make them kick-ass. I have a poison level 5, multi-shot level 20, slow level 12, witch doctor Haunt skill. Well, I can't gear function via the same mechanism with jewels and other modifiers. I have legendary boots with speed level 5, cooldown 13, crit level 2, etc. I think D4 should have a level cap, like D2, because Paragon and leveling are strict power boosters. Gameplay doesn't change when you reach a new level, it's the power. Rather, power and build diversity are conjoined at the hip, because more playing means more finding of augments, which augment both skill type and skill power. I start with a wimpy, generic Haunt skill, but over time it's augmented and mutated into something that's uniquely interesting. I could dump all my mutations into poison-related mutations. I could split poison and fire. I could do whatever, and every new mutation adds to the power of the skill or gear that I'm mutating. This is partially inspired by the iPhone game Solomon's Boneyard, if anyone has played it. And wow, that was long. And not even that weird, which is weird.
Which is weird. You got the normal emails. No wonder he took these.
And I promise you, this is the first time reading them. I was waiting for some of the weird stuff.
I get the underwear, and the crust, and the basement.
The Cheetos.
And you get actually, like, thoughtful, in-depth, discussions of gameplay and mechanics. I see how this relationship works.
RNG is RNG.
Yeah,
RNG.
Don't give me that.
I just rolled the dice, all right?
Yeah.
I just crit. I crit out. You know what's funny though is this email kind of, I think you presaged it a little bit in the earlier convo because it was similar to some of the ideas you had with, basically taking things in the game, runes, whatever collectibles, I think we can call them overall, that can then modify gear or skills. And it kind of brings me back to, wasn't there an early concept for D3? I think we talked about this before, where they were going to do a bunch of collectibles, right? Like rooms
Yeah.
and things open where you could level up skills.
That was one of the original things that they showed off when they started talking about skills for Diablo, is that you would have skill runes. In that these runes you would socket into the skill, and that they would have varying effects. You know, change it to fire damage, or turn it into an AoE skill, or have it hit multiple, chain multiple times, or it would like proc a stun or do poison damage over time. And that this eventually just became that the skill runes, so that each of these runes has like a different effect, for the base skill itself. Instead of being like a gear-based option, because you'd have like a lesser, a regular, like a greater, and like an ancient rune that would then increase the effect for each higher level one that you found. And they actually did do something a little similar in WoW with the relics for the artifact weapons, because in each of your artifact weapons is essentially like a little, almost like sphere grid from Path of Exile. That you gained a separate type of experience to level up your weapon, to then get a new point to put within this artifact path, and then you'd have relics that would increase the base power of your weapon, like increase the item level of your weapon, but then also add bonus skill points along that path for certain skills. So you would have, it's like, well, this one increases my weapon's level by more, so it's just better. But then now I found one of the same level that gives me a more powerful talent. So I'm going to swap out these relics.
Oh.
And so having something like that, where, say, if you had something where I could devote, experience into my skills, almost kind of like like an AA or a Paragon system, more or less, that each individual skill has its own level. So I hit max level, and so now all the experience that I would normally gain, I then channel into individual skills, and it would have like its own, user interface or whatever. Like I'm trying to come up with these ideas, because this was a really nice email that we might want to hold on to and like come back to like in a later episode.
Yeah, I think so.
After I hit more ideas. But think about it like this way: you're a wizard, you go back to town, and so yes, you're a wizard, Harry. Unintentional. And you open up your spell book, and in your spell book you have like the formula for magic missile, and you can change like the runes in the formula in the spell book for your magic missile to increase its damage, or to you shoot like 20 magic missiles instead of one, or so that way as you level it up it becomes more powerful. But you can add new runes into that formula to change its effects. And then the same thing, like you take a barbarian, they go into town, and they kind of like open up like their training manual, and it has like kind of like like the Da Vinci sketches of like them doing like different attacks or whatever, like kind of like showing like their training regiments for how they do like the Hammer of the Ancients, and you can modify the pose or the way that you grip the hammer, and then so that will also change, like you all of a sudden you choke up on the bat, and so you hit more enemies that has a larger AoE. It was just like little things that you could do with the UI to signify how I'm changing like these particular skills.
And I think if I recall correctly, the reason that they kind of shifted away from systems like that was because they didn't want people to incur a sense of, I'm not getting the rune that I want to play with, right? So if RNG wasn't on your side and you're really wanting some multi for your, I don't know, cluster error or something, right? And you just never got the multi rune for it, then you would feel bad because you never got to like complete your build that way. I think though, sorry, just to finish the thought on it real quick, I'll pass it back to you. I think as long as you can find a way to have, and I think you kind of addressed it a little bit with being able to change things out. So like if things aren't permanent, then I think that helps flexibility in terms of like, yes, I'm using this one for now, but eventually I might find I can use that to get to the one that I want to. But also, I think just being able to make choices as players, like it doesn't feel as RPG-esque if I get to unlock everything, right? But if I get to choose, I found this rune and I'm sticking to it, I really like this one, then I'm building my character this way on purpose. It's not the game unlocking as I level up this rune, this rune, this rune, and I eventually choose. It's me saying I'm taking control of my character.
Yeah, and I like, well, you know, World of Warcraft has some like catch-up mechanics and stuff like that, so that way if you focus like all of your artifact power into like this one specific sub-spec of your class, that, you know, you can still go through and add, you know, take some other artifact power, put it into one of your other weapons, and kind of like catch up to a certain extent. You know, so you're not always feeling like that far behind. There's certain things that you could do, like you could make that the new legendary gem system in Diablo 4. That I'm going to do this X mechanic that then gives me a level that I level up, like this particular skill, you know, or this other type of thing that then allows me to level up like this rune that I have on this level skill. And so it gives you that capability that my time investment increases my power level because I'm leveling up these skills or these runes. You know, and if I want to change my build, I have that opportunity, but I have lost out on at least a little bit of time. That, you know, the level of difference that, you know, this guy has like a level 20 rune and I've got a level 10. So obviously he's more powerful, but maybe, you know, it's not, you know, it's like,
that big difference,
like 5 or 10%, you know, in terms of the skill difference or damage difference or whatever that it may be. That you have that benefit, but you're not that far behind someone, you know, like because like with the artifact weapons as it is now, like if you have, you know, a level 70, you know, artifact weapon, you're not that far behind from someone that has like a level 80 artifact weapon. Besides, of course, you know, they probably have better relics, so the item level is higher, but the actual power you're getting from the levels in the artifact weapon itself isn't that big, you know. Right. So it comes more from like the items that you've acquired, you know. So maybe like the runes that he has socketed are better and give it that more bigger splashier effect or whatever because he's doing more difficult content, you know. But it's, I don't know. It's interesting. It's awesome. It's something that we can see and actually look and point to because they're doing it in other games and other systems that could easily be, you know, ported over.
Yeah, I mean that was the last thing I was gonna point out too, is that in chat people are saying like, oh, it sounds like PoE, and even if you take the OG to PoE, which is Final Fantasy VII, because they borrowed a lot of the material system and things like that. Even when you're talking about like the catch-up mechanics, I can think of like, you know, have a EXP plus gem or something that you can link to your new rune that you really want to get going or something, you know. And so you're sacrificing some power because you could link another, you know, potentially damage augmenting rune to it and go with that, or sacrifice that, but you're really honing in on trying to get that multi-shot caught up or whatever, you know.
Yeah, and I mean that would also solve like one of my biggest complaints about D3 was like that spec identity. You know, you can say that I'm an Impale Demon Hunter, but as soon as I change my gear, I'm no longer an Impale Demon Hunter. You know, that's something that's missing a lot from Diablo 2. You know, and also something that they kind of like in World of Warcraft they went back to and really honed in Legion was that spec identity. That like I really am an Unholy Death Knight. You know, I can always switch back over to Blood, but I am at my core and my gear and what I've been focusing my time and progression on is an Unholy Death Knight. And so I am a little bit behind the curve when I switch specs, that I am best as this one thing, because that's what I identify as. And you can always, you know, not have it scale infinitely and have limits on it, you know, make them difficult to or time-consuming to maintain. And that would easily be like a feat of strength or, you know, like an achievement. Oh, you hit level 20 in all of your class's skills, you know, and so that could be something that would go further down the line, and it would make if they had a version of it in D4 seasons, it would make seasonal content a little bit more interesting, because you're like, okay, this season I am, you know, like I'm going straight Impale Demon Hunter, and because like the time investment that's required for it, like I am 100% going Impale Demon Hunter, and I'm not going to have time to go multi-shot, because all of my skill boosts and stuff like that are going straight into these skills for Impale, you know. And so you have to kind of like, that you're actually having to plan it out ahead of time.
Yeah, I think being able to essentially own your choices matters a lot, and it does give the player that power of this is my choice this season. And like you said, it can really kind of hallmark for yourself. Season 9 was my Impale Demon Hunter season. The next season, I really committed to Sentries and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be fun because I do think that Diablo 3 missed out on a little bit of that player commitment to your particular class or character by not having that type of identity, because it was just so easy to switch specs and based solely more or less on your gear layout more than anything else by going away from that skill tree. And now, World of Warcraft kind of like did that first, like dumping like the talent system, like the skill trees and the stuff. And now they kind of with Legion went back to it. Now I know that they're changing it so it's not as heavily focused once they go back into Battle of Azeroth, but it is interesting how it is kind of going within those cycles that people enjoy that, like they like their spec and they want to say like, I am this spec, this class, that's me, that's what I resonate towards.
Absolutely. And a time where millennials can own nothing, they want to own something.
Look at these millennials walking around like they rent the place.
But
all right. Are we going to end the episode on a millennial joke?
I mean, unless there's an item.
That's true. I almost completely forgot. We're now over 2 hours and we're just now hitting items of the week.
We keep getting these great emails.
We do. These were some really thought-provoking emails. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. Westmarch Workshop at blizzpro.com. If you want to share your idea for what you could do with like the what you would like to see like in the next iteration of Diablo, whether it's story or itemization, hit us up. Westmarch Workshop at blizzpro.com.
As you can tell, we like it.
Yeah, that we do. That we do. It gives us plenty to talk about. But yeah, as we're going for the items of the week, we might as well just go ahead and jump into it. And so here on the items of the week. All right. Our first item is sent in by Wiley. He actually sent in a couple of items. One of them was an ancient furnace.
Hey.
But it has been a very long time since we received an ancient furnace, and we said that we would continue to show them until we stopped getting them, and then we stopped getting them, so I guess we're not showing them. So instead we're showing... Yeah. So instead we're showing this Primal Gauntlet of the Wastes, and this guy has been re-rolled for increases attack speed by 7%, critical hit damage of by 50%, critical hit chance by 10%, area damage by 20, and has been augmented with a level 95 gem for 475 strength, and the secondary properties of 210 cold resistance and increases gold and health globe pickup range by 2 yards.
These are insane. Those primaries are all what you want.
Mm-hmm.
All the percentage-based ones. The only thing that could like make this truly perfect would be is if you like this would be legit like crafting the item in D3 Planner, but it would have like all those primaries, and then the secondary would be physical, and maybe instead of pickup radius you'd have like stun chance or something. But even still, that's like whatever. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy good.
And then our second and final item of the week here is sent in by Knight. Thank you for this. Episode too late. This one is a Primal Little Rogue. And this bad boy clocked in at 3,345 DPS. What's interesting is I normally always skip over the decimal point, but this one doesn't have one. It's 0.0. So this one is actually legitimately 3,345 DPS. It's been re-rolled for 10% weapon damage, 1,000 strength, increases attack speed by 7%, 11,000 life after each kill, and monster kills grant 260 experience, and of course Ramaladni's for the socket there. I said it properly, sorry, Ronald McDonald's.
Yeah, I was confused for a second.
Yeah, I didn't even know what that was. And yeah, there it is. There is our items of the week.
Some pretty pretties.
Yep.
Pretty primals.
So if that is if that's something that you want to go through and get in on, Again, Westmarch Workshop at blizzpro.com. Send us your items of the week, your player stories. We would like to know how your season 12 went, so by the time our next season comes around, the season will be long gone. How is your season 12? What are you looking forward to in season 13? And then also, what was your most memorable season to date? Since there is, of course, the question, are all those seasons going forward more or less going to be the same? Are we going to be getting any more patches? Is D3 in maintenance mode? It's a kind of a good time to go and look back. And so we're asking you, the listener or viewer, what was your most memorable season, or what was your most memorable season moment? So go ahead. Shoot us in the email one more time, westmarchworkshop at blizzpro.com.
We want to hear those stories.
That we do. We are also on Twitter at the WM Workshop. You can go through, hit us in there, and find out when we're going live on the show, which just so happens to be on twitch.tv/BlizzPro every other Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. You can follow us there. And if you come through and catch one of our live shows, feel free to go and check out the rest of the content that we do here on the BlizzPro Network. Because on Monday nights, we also have Well Met, our Hearthstone podcast. And if you want to go through and support us and the rest of the BlizzPro community, you can always feel free to follow to see when the shows go live, or even click that subscribe button to go and support all the hosting costs that go into the podcasting and the website. You can find a lot of the stories and more of what we talked about on diablo.blizzpro.com. We are even in-game. We are the BlizzPro clan, so come through and join us. If you don't want to leave your current clan, by all means, you can join the Westmarch Workshop community. You go through and chat with us there. And we also have our own Discord, discord.gg/BlizzPro, if you want to go through and stop by and say hi. And you can also follow us individually. I am at 9ballgamer on Twitter, and I stream once a year on twitch.tv/9ball. I'm just being honest here. And then, of course, you can follow Leviathan here at LeviathanD3 on Twitter, and much more regularly streaming at twitch.tv/Leviathan111. And is there anything else that you'd like to add, sir?
That's funny. The annual streamer returns. Hey, you do anything cool for your annual stream? No, it's just, the one I do.
I just played some Hearthstone,
See you guys next time.
I might even play some Diablo this time.
Whoa.
Right?
Watch out for this guy. Will you at least team it up with a memorable moment, maybe the start of a season or an end of a season, or just a random day in the middle?
Now you're putting pressure on me.
Uh-oh.
Oh, man, I don't even know. And with that, I guess we're going to end it on that note, which thankfully is not a millennial joke.
Woo!